encore applaudir la troupe Maria Massard de Joal Fadut. Excellences, nous les avons fait venir spécialement pour vous rappeler les rythmes de votre enfance du pays sérère. Donc, merci beaucoup à ces braves dames. Son Excellence, Monsieur Macky Sall, président de la République du Sénégal, Excellence Dr Oumar Farouk Ibrahim, secrétaire général de l'Organisation des producteurs de pétrole africains, Madame Sophie Gladima, ministre du Pétrole et des Énergies du Sénégal. Elle a un comité de soutien, vous avez vu. Excellences, Messieurs les ministres des pays hôtes, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres du corps diplomatique, chers conférenciers, chers délégués, distingués invités, c'est un honneur et un plaisir pour moi de vous dire bienvenue à l'édition 2022 de la conférence-exposition MSGBC Oil Gas Power. Mon nom est Oumindour et je suis journaliste. Je suis ravie d'être votre maîtresse de cérémonie durant ces 2 jours de travaux. This is the second edition of this annual gathering, which has already established in itself as the biggest event of the year, celebrating African energy in West Africa. And this year, we are bigger, bolder, and better than ever before. And on that note, I would like to call on stage Mr. N.G. Ayuk, the Executive Chairman of the African Energy Chamber, to give the opening remarks. And he's a champion of African energy. We can applaud him. How are you?
We are back. Excellency, Mr. President, all ministers present, and I stand on all existing protocol. Now you know I don't know too much protocol. It is so good to be back in Senegal, Mauritania, Senegal, the Gambia, Bissau, Conakry, MSGBC, the region that has moved from a place where nobody ever expected that energy would be the driving force of the world to be that region that drives the future. This country, and we could not have been more proud to have a government and a president that has been very supportive of collaborative cooperation and how we build our energy future. Mr. President, we thank you so much. That belief and that drive can be seen transcended with many ministers from different countries being here, and the Apple Secretary General, Dr. Omar Farouk. And then they also have the new kids of the block with a big discovery from Namibia, His Excellency Minister Tom Alwindo. And then you even look at other ministers coming from all over Africa. But that's not the essence we're here today. The reason we're here today is how do we drive the future? And Senegal and this region is going to drive the future on how energy is going to work. 600 million people in Africa without any access to electricity. 900 million with no access to no clean cooking technologies. This is real. This is not a joke. And as we have this discussion here over the next 2 days, we need to leave here challenging ourselves on how we're going to shape a future for young people sitting here believing in leadership that drives them to their future, believing in an Africa and a region that can really shape what we do. We have a bold chance and an amazing opportunity to say that and to do something about it. That's why it's important that we support local companies. That's why it's important that we support African companies. That's why it's important that local content can no longer be at the back burner. But even more important, that's why we support women-owned businesses. That's why important that we challenge ourselves. Because women are still the last hired in our industry and are still the first fired. We need to change that. We need to make that bold step. We need to drive that big issue Because ESG today cannot mean that African and African women get left behind. We've seen the market change over the last few months. We went from no drilling, and some of us who talked about drilling, well, I say drill, baby, drill. We were seen as crazies. But yesterday's nobody, sometimes in the end, common sense prevails. That's why I'm very happy, I'm very proud to see BP in this room, driving up gas, driving up regional gas that it can really reshape. That's why I'm very proud to see what Senegal is doing and other regions to connect the region with gas pipelines to see how we also have a domestic gas obligation. Isn't it strange that we have a discussion about gas going somewhere when we can also have gas taking care of the local markets and local communities? As we go over the next 2 days, I want to urge us to have those discussions. I want to urge you to drive those discussions. It's our chance to be that catalyst that really change. It's our chance to really stand with the Woodsides of the world and say, let's move, let's drive, let's produce, let's get things done. It's our chance to stand with the Cosmoses and say, let's explore more. Because this is still a region that is one of the most underexplored, and it's our chance to say, we need to take out the chokehold on investment in the industry. I close with this as we move on to COP27. We have an amazing opportunity to never back down on gas. They're going to tell you that we need to drive renewables. That's okay, but never, ever back down on gas. If you back down on gas, we are driving our continent to the cliff. Gas is going to shape Africa. Gas is going to help us monetize. It's going to create more value to our economies. Urea, ammonia, NPK plants. Mr. President, you wouldn't have to go to Russia and Ukraine looking for fertilizers and blockage and everything, because we're going to use gas to solve your problems. And we need to drive that. There is no reason why we cannot monetize that gas and gas for Africa. That's something I learned from Minister Gabriel a long time ago when he gave me the theory of LNG to Africa. Gas, baby, gas. Gas, baby, gas. We need to really focus on driving that. And let's not back down on an industry, in my conclusion, that has been the driver of human civilization. That human civilization that has created longer lives, more medicine, opportunity, roads, buildings. And we've reached the moment where if you even talk about being an oil man or a petroleum person working in this industry, you are demonized, you are castigated. Don't let them tell you wrong. This is the best damn industry that exists. And we need to be proud about this every day. We need to be proud to explore. We need to be proud for people going out on distant shores to drill, to shoot seismic. And we need to stand up and back Africa's right to grow. Thank you so much for giving me a chance. Thank you so much for driving this. And let's go out and let's go change the world. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup, NJ. As you can see, our region is facing big issues. Nous allons à présent vous proposer de voir en quelques images qu'est-ce que c'est que le MSGBC et surtout son potentiel.
Le développement des ressources énergétiques en Afrique de l'Ouest a été l'épine dorsale de la croissance socio-économique de la région pendant des décennies. En tant que clé de la croissance et de l'industrialisation durable, le développement des ressources en pétrole et en gaz naturel dans la région MSGBC se traduira par une croissance économique durable à long terme. Au Sénégal, les projets de développement de GTA au nord et de Sangomar au sud avancent comme prévu malgré les impacts liés à la Covid. Les premiers mètres cubes de gaz et les premiers barils de pétrole sont attendus en fin 2023. Parallèlement, le pays travaille à la mise en place d'un réseau gazier en perspective de l'exploitation du champ gazier de Yakar-Teranga, qui servira, avec les autres projets, à la fourniture de l'électricité du pays et de la sous-région à partir du gaz. Le Sénégal prévoit d'adapter les usines de production de Sénélec pour utiliser le gaz local, Une centrale de 120 MW est construite dans ce sens à Malicounda pendant que des acteurs du secteur privé sont en train de développer une autre de 300 MW au Cap des Biches. Avec le gaz comme énergie de transition et la poursuite du développement des énergies renouvelables qui représentent près de 30% dans le mix énergétique, le Sénégal est un excellent endroit d'investissement pour résorber la crise énergétique dans la région MSGBC. Son bassin regorge de forts potentiels en hydrocarbures et reste encore sous-exploré. Bien que doté d'innombrables ressources en hydrocarbures, les ambitions énergétiques de la Mauritanie restent principalement axées sur les énergies renouvelables avec des projets tels que la centrale solaire de Toujounine, le parc solaire de Climat et le parc éolien de Boulet-Noir, actuellement en cours, maximisant les 558 gigawatts d'énergie solaire du pays et 47 gigawatts de son potentiel éolien. Entre-temps, les réformes législatives et les relations publiques-privées pionnières en Gambie ont abouti à l'approbation du projet régional d'accès à l'électricité de la CEDEAO à la signature d'un accord d'achat d'électricité avec Car Powership, à la construction d'une centrale hydroélectrique de 30 kW à Soma et au lancement du programme d'énergie renouvelable pour le pays. Les efforts d'exploration récents de Petronas et Far Limited ont révélé des réserves de pétrole de classe mondiale essentielles à l'amélioration de l'accès à l'énergie pour sa population. La Gambie a par ailleurs annoncé le lancement de son deuxième cycle majeur de licence qui aura lieu cette année. Comme leurs homologues régionaux, les activités d'exploration ambitieuses de la Guinée-Bissau et de la Guinée-Conakry permettront à l'ensemble de la région de tirer parti de ces réserves commercialement exploitables tout en poursuivant de manière agressive une économie verte compétitive, les deux pays ayant mis en œuvre des objectifs énergétiques reposant sur la maximisation d'énergie renouvelable. Ces projets comprennent le projet solaire Kumagweli de 40 MW en Guinée-Conakry, la centrale hydroélectrique de Garafiri de 75 MW, le projet solaire de 82 MW de Clean Power Generation et les projets hydroélectriques de 240 et 450 MW, un projet solaire de 20 MW et systèmes de mini-réseaux hybrides de 1 MW sont en cours de développement en Guinée-Bissau. Ces développements de projets à grande échelle dans le bassin MSGBC ont non seulement positionné la région comme une destination d'investissement compétitive à échelle mondiale, mais ont également joué un rôle clé dans le développement du continent.
Thank you for watching. We would like to thank our partners, and BP is one of them. BP represented here by Gordon Birrell, Executive Vice President, Production and Operation. Please welcome him.
Dear President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And thank you, NJ, for your warm welcome. As an oil and gas man, you made me feel particularly welcome. So thank you very much for that very generous welcome. I'm delighted to be back in Senegal and honoured to be able to participate in this important conference. In particular, I'd like to thank His Excellency President Macky Sall, President Sall's outstanding leadership and vision, along with Mauritania President Mohamed Ghazouani, will soon see Mauritania and Senegal join the ranks of the world's major gas-producing nations. And it's BP's privilege, it's our privilege to be part of that journey with the nations of Senegal and Mauritania as the operator of the GTA project and other projects in the basin. And I'd like to thank Minister of Petroleum and Energies for Senegal, Her Excellency Sophie Gladima, and Mauritania's Minister Mohamed Saleh. Their ongoing support and partnership has underpinned the development of the world-class gas resources discovered in the MSGBC Basin. This basin, I would say, is even more significant today than when the resources were discovered just over 5 years ago. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. I'd also like to update on the excellent progress we're making on the GTA field and our discussions on future developments in the basin. Where BP operates, building an economic and social legacy is a big part of what we are as a company. And today I'd also like to describe the efforts we're making in that regard in this energy basin. So let me start with why we see this basin as so significant for the world as well as for the future of the region. I do this acknowledging the current challenges facing the world, many of which relate to energy. 2 years of pandemic have had a heavy toll on humanity. The war in Ukraine has added more uncertainty and volatility to the world. And all over the world, countries are currently dealing with the challenges of energy and food supplies, supply chain disruption more widely, and widespread inflation. At the same time, the threat of climate change has not gone away. The current situation reminds us that we don't just need lower carbon energy, which we do, but we also need secure energy. We also need affordable energy. This is what we in BP call the energy trilemma: low carbon, secure, and affordable energy. And within that, we're seeing two major trends. The world needs many sources and types of energy to go through this challenging period, including hydrocarbons. And secondly, most likely an acceleration of the energy transition as a result of the volatility in the world. These two trends underline the importance and future potential of the MSGBC Basin, not just as a world-class hydrocarbon resource, but also as the foundation for the region's entire energy transition. Why do I say this? As we look across the decades to 2050, we see a world that is going to need more primary energy than it uses today. It is a world that is electrifying rapidly, with gas and renewables playing an increasingly important role. It's a world where oil and gas are going to be needed for decades to come as we make an orderly transition. And of the hydrocarbons, natural gas has particular resilience. Current world events are demonstrating the vitally important role that liquefied natural gas can play in underpinning the energy security of nations and regions, which means the entry of Senegal and Mauritania as a major gas and LNG producers could not be more timely. Natural gas continues to play a crucial role in supporting the shift away from coal, as well as balancing the intermittency of solar and wind in power grids. This is the new world of energy in which the world's oil and gas regions, including MSGBC Basin, must compete and thrive. This means being resilient in the face of the many challenges and unknowns that lie ahead as the energy world transitions. This is our objective here in Senegal and Mauritania, to develop new gas resources that are resilient no matter how the world changes and how fast or slow the energy transition takes. Let me give you a brief update on progress on our projects. What we're doing to unlock the potential. And this is a source of huge pride for all of us in BP across the world. It's all about delivering at scale and managing complexity. This is the lifeblood of what we do as a company in many places around the world, and particularly here in Senegal and Mauritania. So we are currently working along with our GTA partners, Petrosen, SMH, and Cosmos Energy, towards the safe production of gas from phase 1 of the project. This is truly a world-scale project. It's a groundbreaking project that covers multiple technologies in very, very deep water, and the facilities are being built across multiple continents. And I'm delighted to say that this project is now 80%, that's 80% complete. And our teams, have made tremendous progress across all of the delivery lines. For example, 3 out of the 4 wells required for startup have been drilled to total depth, and the team is making good progress on drilling towards drilling the 4th well. Subsea, the subsea installation at roughly 10,000 feet of water depth is ongoing, with subsea structures and pipelines that connect them to the FPSO and the LNG hub being laid by an impressive fleet of marine vessels. At the hub itself, which you can see a picture of in the background, this is real, this is offshore right now. My team and I will visit tomorrow. So at the hub site, the breakwater structure, which you can see behind me, that will shield visiting LNG vessels from the rough weather of the Atlantic conditions, is now in place, followed by the installation, following the installation of the 21st and final concrete caisson in May, which of course were all built here in the port of Dakar. Meanwhile, in different construction yards around the world, we've been finalizing the completion of other equipment, which will come together to form what is a highly complex engineering jigsaw. The quarters and utility platform has just completed the journey of 12,000 miles from Yantai in China to arrive at our site. As well as hosting the living quarters for offshore employees, it will provide services required to operate a nearshore offshore LNG terminal. And delivery of the floating production, storage and offloading vessel that we call the FPSO will reach the completion phase in the yard in China. It's approaching the completion phase, and onshore commissioning in China is ongoing. And that vessel, which is the equivalent in size to a 10-story building that sits on top of 2 football fields, is scheduled to sail from China at the end of this year. And in Singapore, the floating LNG facility that turns the gas into liquid, which liquefies that gas for export, is really starting to take shape. And as we work towards it sailing away and arriving in Senegalese and Mauritanian waters in 2023. So despite the interruptions and challenges, and they have been very real challenges of COVID, we've achieved significant milestones with, of course, safety of our employees and our contractors and communities always to the fore. And this has been done by our world-class contractors, many of them in the room today, who continue to support delivery of the project. So we look forward to seeing this exciting and innovative project as it continues to come offshore in the waters of Senegal and Mauritania. Delivery is also about creating a legacy that makes a real difference to the people of a region by our presence, our industry's presence here. That means sourcing locally where possible and constantly striving to build supplier capability. For example, we have recently set up a supplier portal on our website to promote potential opportunities in a simple and transparent manner. And GTA construction activities have generated over 3,000 local jobs, and over 350 local companies have been engaged with the project so far in Senegal and Mauritania. And we're also focused on developing the local workforce. The trainee technicians which we hired in Mauritania and Senegal are currently finishing up their technical studies in the United Kingdom as part of a 4-year BP-funded training course. Next year, they will join one of BP's global operated assets in either Oman, Azerbaijan, Indonesia, or Trinidad to gain vital hands-on experience before they are unleashed to operate the GTA facility. And I'm very confident that we'll set them up well to run our GTA facilities when we start up. And our partners, Petrosen, SMH, and Cosmos, with our partners, we aim to provide positive benefits to the host communities through social development projects, including strengthening access and quality of healthcare services and increasing community health awareness. At the St. Louis Hospital, we've recently renovated the maternity unit. There are now 2 new operating rooms, for example, and separate recovery and resuscitation rooms. We also support a mobile clinic to operate in remote areas around St. Louis. So far this year, over 1,000 patients have benefited from this service. We are all supporting local economic development by investing in areas such as fishing, women's cooperatives, microfinance of business, and business skills training for local communities. Our projects also aim to increase access to and the quality of education in the school infrastructure where we operate. And environmental awareness, including access to water, sustainability, sustainable use of resources, marine biodiversity research and conservation. In Indiago, we've completed a water project which has resulted in fresh water being available to over 3,000 people. And as you can see, there's a lot going on right now. So what comes next? Well, we're also working on to progress the next project, which is phase 2 of GTA, in a competitive way that seeks to maximize the benefits to both Senegal and Mauritania. And with our partners, we're working with the government of Mauritania to identify the most attractive development pathway for the Birala gas resources. And we're in dialogue with the government here, in deep dialogue with the government here in Senegal, exploring the development of a national gas to power, so gas to domestic power project called Yakar Teranga. In July, the partners met here in Dakar to collaboratively refine the Yakar Teranga development concept. And in parallel, both offshore and onshore surveys for Yakar Teranga have commenced, further advancing the technical status of the development. These growth opportunities will pave the way for a long-lasting partnership and legacy together in support of both the country's commitment to energy diversification. And it's aligned with BP's own strategy and purpose as we move from being an international oil company to an integrated energy company, but of course with hydrocarbons at our core for many decades to come. Let me conclude and sum up. What does this all signify for the outlook for the MSGBC Basin? First, it's clear the world needs a better energy system. And what we're building together here in Senegal and Mauritania is part of that. Hydrocarbons, and especially natural gas and LNG, remain core to solving the energy trilemma of affordable, low-carbon, and secure energy. And they remain core to BP's own energy transition plans. Second, we're making great progress towards bringing the basin's world-class gas resources safely to first production to the markets of the world when the world needs it most. We've much still to do, but we're very much on track with that mission. And we're already seeing some of the important social and economic benefits within local communities as a result of the projects. And through close collaboration with our host governments and partners, we're building a foundation of a multi-decade partnership for a long-term energy hub in West Africa. Partnerships that stand the test of time and thrive through the inevitable good times and the inevitable difficult times. What BP is doing in Senegal and Mauritania matters for the countries in the region. It matters for the energy transition in the world, and it matters for BP. We know there's an expectation to succeed, and Mr. President, that's exactly what we intend to do. That is our commitment. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Birrell. Thank you to BP. And let's welcome another partner, represented here by Mrs. Shiva McMahon, Executive Vice President, International Operations, Woodside Energy.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République du Sénégal, Monsieur Macky Sall, Madame le Ministre du Pétrole et de l'Énergie, Madame Sophie Gladima, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres et représentants du gouvernement du Sénégal et des autres pays de la région MSGBC et de l'Afrique, Mesdames et Messieurs les représentants de Petrosen, Mesdames et Messieurs les participants. J'ai l'honneur, en ma qualité de vice-présidente exécutive en charge des opérations internationales de Woodside Energy, de me présenter à vous aujourd'hui. Je me réjouis de participer à la conférence MSGBC Oil Gas Power afin de promouvoir cet important bassin pétrolier et gazier qui demeure prometteur dans un contexte marqué par des défis à relever et des opportunités pour la région, avec malheureusement des incertitudes énergétiques croissantes à l'heure où de nombreux pays se tournent vers l'Afrique en vue de soutenir la réponse à la demande énergétique. Woodside Energy est l'opérateur du développement du champ Sangomar, le premier développement pétrolier offshore du Sénégal. Le projet Sangomar sera l'une des premières découvertes importantes de pétrole de bassin MSGBC à être développé et il contribuera à construire les fondations du secteur pétrolier et gazier en amont au Sénégal. Woodside Energy apporte des décennies d'expérience dans la production sûre et fiable d'hydrocarbures grâce à notre partenaire de la joint venture, Petrosen. Nous avons réalisé des progrès significatifs dans le cadre de ce projet d'importance nationale pour le Sénégal, compte tenu des défis auxquels nous avons fait face ces dernières années, en raison de la crise sanitaire mondiale et de ses conséquences sur la circulation des biens et des personnes à travers le monde. Au nom de la joint venture, je me tiens à remercier Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République du Sénégal, Macky Sall, ses ministres et le gouvernement du Sénégal pour leur soutien au développement du champ Sangomar, ainsi que pour la confiance placée en Woodside Energy comme partenaire au développement des ressources énergétiques du Sénégal et de ses aspirations à devenir un fournisseur mondial d'énergie. Woodside a fusionné avec BHP Petroleum pour créer une société énergétique indépendante mondiale dotée de l'envergure, de la diversité et de la résilience nécessaires afin de créer de la valeur pour les parties prenantes et d'une capacité accrue dans la transition énergétique. Notre portefeuille, en termes d'actifs et d'intérêts pétroliers et gaziers de qualité, est situé en Australie, dans le golfe du Mexique, à Trinité et Tobago, au Sénégal et au Timor-Leste. Nous avons également des perspectives d'exploration dans le monde, à savoir au Canada, en Égypte et à Barbade, et investissons dans les nouvelles énergies. Cette fusion combine le meilleur des deux organisations, apporte le leadership et l'expertise technique nécessaires à aider Woodside Energy à prospérer dans un secteur dynamique et compétitif. Woodside Energy étant désormais plus large, nous réaliserons des économies de taille tout en restant agiles, indépendants et dévoués à fournir des services énergétiques abordables ainsi que des retombées supérieures pour les parties prenantes. Notre objectif est de prospérer au travers de la transition énergétique mondiale avec un portefeuille à coût bas, à faible émission, lucratif, résilient et diversifié. Les approvisionnements et les besoins en énergie dans le monde sont en constante évolution. L'industrie pétrolière et gazière de l'Afrique se développe pour devenir un plus important fournisseur d'énergie afin de satisfaire les besoins mondiaux. Le Sénégal et le bassin MSGBC sont notamment bien placés pour aider à satisfaire ces besoins, ainsi que les exigences de la population croissante et l'industrialisation progressive de l'Afrique. Nos trois piliers stratégiques, le pétrole, le gaz et les nouvelles énergies, ont chacun un rôle à jouer dans l'avenir de notre société. Nous prévoyons que ces produits gardent la même importance pour le système énergétique mondial pendant les décennies à venir. Le pétrole occupe une place importante dans notre offre énergétique. Les opportunités à court terme que les projets pétroliers offshore tels que celui de Sangomar apportent aux pays hôtes se veulent rapides à commercialiser et fournissent les revenus nécessaires à favoriser leur développement économique et social. En ce qui concerne le gaz naturel vendu sous forme de gaz naturel liquéfié, GNL, représente le principal produit du portefeuille de Woodside Energy. Au cours de l'an dernier, nous avons fourni 5% de l'approvisionnement mondial en GNL. Le GNL est transportable, flexible d'une destination à l'autre, entraînant une demande croissante causée par des incertitudes géopolitiques qui créent une volatilité au sein des marchés mondiaux. Les incertitudes actuelles relatives à l'approvisionnement en gaz naturel ont poussé de nombreux pays développés à se tourner vers le gaz naturel africain pour leurs besoins d'énergie. L'ouverture des ressources de gaz naturel africain à l'exportation génère des revenus substantiels pour les pays concernés et grâce à leur contribution à l'approvisionnement énergétique national, soutiennent les ambitions et le développement économique de nombreux pays africains. Le gaz naturel est abondant en Afrique et peut être utilisé pour remplacer le pétrole importé ou la production d'électricité à partir du charbon. Mais il peut aussi fournir une source d'énergie localement disponible pour l'usage domestique grâce au gaz pétrole liquéfié, GPL. À titre d'exemple, la stratégie gouvernementale de conversion Gas to Power du Sénégal vise à s'écarter des combustibles importés pour la production d'électricité et d'utiliser ses ressources en gaz pour fournir à sa population un meilleur accès à une électricité fiable et abordable tout en jouant son rôle dans la transition énergétique. Woodside Energy est prête à soutenir nos nations partenaires et nos clients à atteindre leurs objectifs de transition énergétique, fournissant de manière responsable et durable une énergie fiable et à coût bas. Je vais me dépêcher un peu parce qu'on est à court de temps. C'est bon? Merci, Monsieur le Président. Les approvisionnements et les besoins en énergie dans le monde sont en constante évolution. Notre portefeuille d'actifs offre à Woodside Energy la capacité de répondre à la demande énergétique, mais aussi d'investir et de fournir de nouveaux produits énergétiques ainsi que des services à faible émission, répondant ainsi aux futures demandes de nos clients. Les stratégies climatiques de Woodside Energy consistent à réduire notre émission nette de gaz à effet de serre tout en investissant dans les produits et services dont nos clients ont besoin pour réduire leurs émissions. Nous faisons progresser les possibilités de fournir des produits tels que l'hydrogène et de l'ammoniac et nous avons prévu un investissement de 5 milliards de dollars dans de nouveaux produits énergétiques et services à faible émission d'ici l'année 2030. Nous avons établi des objectifs à court et à moyen terme de réduction des émissions de gaz à effet de serre avec une portée des fonds propres nets catégorie 1 et 2. Nous disposons de 3 moyens pour atteindre ces objectifs: éviter les émissions à travers la conception au design, les réduire par les opérations efficaces et de compenser le reste. Notre priorité première reste d'éviter et de réduire les émissions. Les compensations de qualité scientifiquement vérifiées et comptabilisées avec précision jouent également un rôle important. Au Sénégal, nous avons commencé à développer notre portefeuille de compensation. Plus tôt cette année, nous avons conclu un accord nous permettant d'acheter des crédits carbone générés par le parc éolien de Taïba, Sénégal. situé à Thiès et exploité par l'Ekela. Nous continuons d'évaluer d'autres opportunités de compensation carbone au Sénégal afin de compléter notre portefeuille. En ce qui concerne le développement du champ Sangomar, le projet est bien avancé et réalisé à plus de 60%. La majorité de l'activité du projet se déplace depuis les chantiers étrangers vers le Sénégal. Le démarrage des travaux de construction en début 2020 a coïncidé avec le début de la crise sanitaire mondiale, affectant ainsi la chaîne d'approvisionnement du projet et l'ensemble de son calendrier. Malgré ces défis, nous avons bien progressé et restons concentrés sur la livraison du premier baril du pétrole au cours du second semestre 2023. Les travaux de construction et de conversion du FPSO Léopold Sédar Senghor ont bien progressé, mais ont été affectés par des restrictions imposées sur les multiples chantiers de construction en Chine. Le FPSO sera transféré à Singapour dès le mois prochain afin d'achever les travaux d'intégration de sa partie supérieure et de mise en service avant d'être remorqué au Sénégal. La campagne d'installation sous-marine a débuté de manière intensive avec la livraison progressive de toutes les structures sous-marines à Dakar au cours de l'année dernière. La campagne de forage des 23 puits de développement a débuté en juillet 2021 avec à ce jour 2 navires de forage sur le terrain, sans compter le soutien de nos sous-traitants ayant établi des bases de classe mondiale ici à Dakar. Au travers du projet, nous avons réalisé d'importants investissements dans l'économie locale, y compris la mise en place de nouveaux services de forage et installations logistiques à Dakar. Par nos sous-traitants, nous avons favorisé les relations avec des partenaires locaux pour former et développer la main-d'œuvre locale, ainsi que pour élargir un réseau fournisseurs locaux qui faciliteront une croissance continue de l'industrie en amont pour les années à venir. Dans l'ensemble, depuis 2020, nous estimons que le développement du champ Sangomar a employé plus de 6 000 travailleurs locaux. Alors que la construction du projet contribue à l'économie nationale, nous sommes fiers de soutenir les ambitions du Sénégal en tant que nation émergente exportatrice de pétrole dans la région, avec des avantages à plus long terme de plus de 20 ans de production pétrolière grâce au développement du champ Sangomar. Alors, en conclusion, au moment où le monde progresse dans sa transition énergétique, la direction de Woodside Energy est claire. Nous avons comme vision de fournir l'énergie à coût bas et à faible émission dont notre monde a besoin et de maintenir une stratégie visant à prospérer tout au long de la transition énergétique. Le développement du champ Sangomar permet au Sénégal de participer à la transition énergétique afin de faire croître son économie et d'améliorer les moyens de subsistance de sa population. Le soutien et l'esprit de teranga du peuple sénégalais ont permis à Sangomar de croître et d'atteindre son niveau actuel de développement. La collaboration, le développement de notre main-d'œuvre et de notre réseau de sous-traitants locaux seront essentiels à l'avenir du projet. Je tiens à remercier une fois de plus Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République Macky Sall, Madame le Ministre du Pétrole et des Énergies Petrosen, ainsi que le peuple sénégalais d'avoir choisi Woodside Energy comme partenaire de choix dans le développement des ressources énergétiques. Nous avons hâte de partager le succès et les retombées du projet aujourd'hui et dans l'avenir. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Madame McMahon. Et toutes nos excuses, on est un peu bousculés par le temps, mais ça valait la peine de vous écouter pour toutes ces bonnes nouvelles que vous nous avez annoncées. Et nous continuons à accueillir ceux qui ont rejoint cet événement. Nous sommes heureux d'accueillir à cette conférence les instances internationales qui s'occupent de ces questions de pétrole, de gaz et d'énergie. Et à ce propos, nous passons la parole à M. Milton Catlin, secrétaire général de l'Union internationale du gaz.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honour to be here today to share the platform with such esteemed colleagues and to participate in this timely event held at a critical moment for gas development in Senegal and on this continent. Access to affordable, reliable, secure energy is a human right. It underpins personal freedom, the ability to protect and care for our families, and the ability to grow our economies and our societies. But choosing the right energy mix in terms of minimising environmental impact is a human responsibility, affecting in a very real sense the world we leave to our children. Balancing this right and this responsibility is at the heart of modern energy policy, and natural gas, together with a growing portfolio of decarbonised, low and zero carbon gases, will be key to navigating the years ahead. Too often in human history, access to reliable and affordable energy has been a privilege of the few when it is a basic right for all. This has been especially true in Africa, where 600 million people still have no electricity. That is almost twice the size of the United States, or 1.3 times the population of the European Union. The number of people who lack access to clean cooking is even higher. More troubling is the fact that energy access in Africa decreased last year, reversing good progress made before the COVID pandemic crisis. Now, global inflation and commodities crises further threaten vulnerable populations in Africa and across the world, pushing millions of people towards poverty. Energy poverty has become a growing reality even in the wealthy European countries, all while the planet continues warming and the need to reverse growing emissions trends is urgent, especially as we now are observing more and more polluting fuels being brought online to keep the lights on. Despite the understandable need to deal with the unfolding global energy catastrophe, the world must stay the course of energy transition, and natural gas will be the key to making that possible. Gas is the fastest available, flexible, efficient, and sustainable long-term vehicle to get the world back onto the energy transition path. And it's the key to African social and economic development. Africa's proven natural gas reserves total more than 500 million cubic feet, and because Africa remains largely unexplored or underexplored, the potential for vast undiscovered reserves is well worth considering. The US Geological Survey estimated there are 319 trillion cubic feet of gas waiting to be discovered in sub-Saharan Africa. According to the IEA, 13% of the world's natural gas is here in Africa. In its latest LNG report, the International Gas Union notes that Africa has over 120 million tonnes per annum of proposed liquefaction waiting for final investment decision. Now that's an astonishing figure, 120 million tonnes per annum. It is a quarter of the previous year's total world LNG capacity. If that capacity materialised, Africa and its people could see enormous societal and economic benefits. It is vital that this opportunity is both capitalised on in a timely manner, with deliberate local policy making and quick action to turn potential into projects, and it is leveraged to the maximum benefit of the African people. Not just bringing modern energy and security to other markets, but providing access and improving people's lives at home. Here in Senegal, we can see a great example, a real example, of how deliberate government policy can facilitate tangible movement from potential to outcomes, with the much-anticipated GTA project getting closer to its expected completion date and expected to start to supply the world with reliable, clean and secure gas in just over a year from now. gas offers a very real opportunity for Africans to take control of their energy future and meet their climate change obligations. Africa has the right to develop its own resources and to benefit from them, as other parts of the world have. Africa's natural gas consumption is small. It's just 3.4% of world consumption, even though Africa has nearly 1/5 of the world's population. But the volume is certainly growing. It's growing about 6% per year. At the moment, this growth has been concentrated in a few areas, but it has the potential of reaching much higher rates across the entire continent. That is why infrastructure investment and regional interconnectedness are so important, and this is where I hope to see a much greater role for global public finances. Most importantly, this would be an investment with a positive societal return under sustainable development scenarios in line with the Paris Agreement and the UN Sustainable Development Agenda. As I told an audience in London last month, the current energy crisis in the developed world, where the wealthy economies are worried about maintaining secure and affordable and reliable access to energy to cook meals and heat homes for their families, is the only reality that hundreds of millions of Africans have known to date. Natural gas and LNG can help Africa address its climate change ambitions, its energy security, and its social and economic development. It can do this because natural gas is abundant, and it occupies a special place in the energy world. As I say, it's abundant, affordable, and accessible. And because it provides the most energy per unit of carbon emission among fossil fuels, it combines with the ability to progressively decarbonise itself at scale. To this end, our industry is eager to integrate growing renewable gases, hydrogen, and carbon capture into its networks. Gas is also playing a crucial role in supporting the integration of larger shares of renewables into our energy system, providing necessary grid balancing, smoothing periods of intermittency, and ensuring stable energy wherever it's needed, regardless of the weather. Gas is what can take the world from total fossil fuel dependence to a carbon-neutral world. The IGU's message to global policymakers and to the financial community has been simple. Gas infrastructure investments will not be stranded, even where strict climate commitments are in place. On the contrary, investments in gas will support and accelerate both climate and development commitments. Even the best-intended climate actions cannot succeed if they stymie economic growth and prosperity or deny millions of people their right to access affordable, modern, clean and safe energy. Senegal and Africa are ready to claim this right, and its abundant gas resources will be the key to its achievements. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Kathleen. We are delighted to welcome this year 6 ministers from African countries, and we will have the opportunity to listen to them during this event. But now we start with Honorable Tom Alwindo, Minister of Mines and Energy, Republic of Namibia.
His Excellency, President Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal and Chairman of the African Union, my sister, Honorable Sophie Gladima, Minister of Mines and Geology, colleague ministers present, and esteemed ladies and gentlemen. Salam alaikum. Bonjour. Neguen def wa Senegal. Kontanan si lenti daka bu tarubi, indale na nuyo wa Namibi. We are here as Africans, Africans from the south, from the north, from the west and the south, but nevertheless Africans. It is our duty to ensure that we live up to the expectations of our forefathers, to unite and develop our continent, and let's do it for Africa and for all the Africans. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have what I think is good news to share with you. And however, before I do that, I need to put it in proper context by starting with a few sobering truths. The truth is this: for far too long, Africa has been a subject of ridicule and disrespect by the international communities. Generally, we are always associated with negative things. It's either underdevelopment, or poverty, or violence. And this narrative completely ignores the strength and resilience of the African people, and it disregards our intelligence and tenacity. And the result of these misperceptions about Africa are that as a member of the global communities, our voice is not heard. And consequently, we have not been able to take up our rightful place as a respected voice of the global community, a voice that deserves to be heard. These misperceptions are so pervasive that they impact all our aspects of our lives, including that of energy, which is a subject matter of this conference. For example, in the recent past, developed nations, especially Western countries, that take pride in tolerance, understanding, and sophistication, have had no problems trying to dictate the how and the when of African countries' energy transition. They cajole us into an energy transition strategy that they themselves have determined, and they did that according to their own circumstances. However, ladies and gentlemen, the irony here is that many people, including some of us sitting here, see this energy transition agenda pushed by the developed countries vigorously in a rather positive light. This is made possible only because of the messaging. For example, the messaging goes like, it is the African countries that are among the most vulnerable to negative impacts of climate change. And to be clear, I am not here taking issue with the fact that African countries are severely affected by the effect of climate change. We are all affected. We have seen devastating droughts and floods in various African countries, and most of us have experienced changed rain patterns which are negatively affecting food security on the continent. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is real, and it must be a concern to all of us. What I, however, find unreasonable is when some countries and global interest groups try to dissuade Africa from leveraging some of its natural resources. They suggest, and at times demand, that Africa gives up its fossil fuel energy sources, as they see them as the dirty carbon-spewing oil and gas. They coax us to, as soon as possible, switch to clean renewable energy sources such as wind and solar, and that is for our own good. This urging from our friends is tantamount to the proverbial kicking away of the ladder, and essentially saying, do as I say and not what I did or what I do. Not only is this kind of mindset condescending, but it also shows a lack of concern about the negative impacts of us rushing our switch from fossil fuels to renewables. Think about the potential loss and greater difficulties in delivering reliable electricity to the hundreds of millions of Africans who need it so badly. Think about the ensuing loss of the livelihood that most African countries have been carefully nurturing over the last few decades, and therefore pushing Africa to move forward with an energy transition on any timetable other than that we have determined ourselves is just another example of the lack of respect of the global community has for African priorities. While we recognize the inevitability of the energy transition, we also call for an energy transition that is just and equitable among nations. And countries that are highly dependent on fossil fuel for their socioeconomic development may need a little more time to transit than most countries that have already made an inroad into renewable energy space. Now, at the beginning, I did say I have good news to share, and by now you might be probably wondering when it's going to get to the good news. The good news, ladies and gentlemen, is here that we, as African energy industry stakeholders, we do not have to shrug our shoulders. We cannot and should not accept other people's realities about our energy trajectory. Not when we are just about to get there. Not when turning things around is clearly within our grasp. I have in recent years seen many African countries take an increasingly strategic approach in capitalizing on their oil and gas resources to build better futures for their citizens. More and more African countries are managing their oil revenues in a more transparent manner. And at the same time, most of us are developing legal frameworks that foster a more productive relationship with international oil companies operating in our jurisdictions. This is an exciting time for us. And in order to reap the economic benefit for our citizens, we need to be steadfast, we need to persevere, and in this manner, instead of us facing hopelessness and despair, many more young Africans will be empowered to achieve the future they deserve. With this positive mindset in harnessing our oil and gas resources, we can reap the economic benefits that come with eradicating energy poverty. We can grow our industries. We will create well-paying jobs for our citizens and create private sector companies and entrepreneurs on the continent. And my friends, this is the only sustainable way that we can manage a successful energy transitions. One of the most significant reasons why Africans must insist on a just energy transition is the fact that the continent suffers acute energy poverty. As it was already said, more than 600 million African people do not have access to reliable electricity. And as we all know, energy is a critical catalyst for development. And we all know the level of development in our respective countries on the continent. Therefore, African countries need a reliable energy supply to provide livelihoods to their people. Businesses need reliable power to function, and communities need power to lift themselves out of poverty. Again, the good news is really that Africa has started to recognize that instead of exporting our vast natural gas, we can, should, and must first use it to meet our domestic needs. We have seen increasing numbers of gas-to-power initiatives with the potential to alleviate our energy poverty. And given the size of the natural gas resources on the continent, we can certainly launch more of these initiatives. Back home in Namibia, we are doing just that. We will harness our fossil fuel resources, including natural gas, for our domestic, regional, and continental needs. We will be doing this while simultaneously building a thriving renewable energy industry that will help to alleviate climate change. We are particularly excited about the green hydrogen industry that we are busy developing in Namibia. This is made possible primarily because of our world-class solar and wind resources. And we are also have more land where green hydrogen assets can be built. And all these make Namibia a front runner in becoming a continental green hydrogen hub. Now, in developing our green hydrogen hub industry, we are keenly also aware of the necessary global collaboration, because anything that is demanded globally will need global collaboration. Think about things like the standards and the regulations about green hydrogen. You need to have a globally accepted standard of what green hydrogen is, and this can only be achieved when you have meaningful global collaboration. It is through global collaboration and not competition, especially at this early stage, that we will create a sustainable global green hydrogen industry. I would also like to share with you good news about two recent major oil discoveries in our country by Shell Oil and Total Energies. We are indeed excited about the discoveries, and we are working hard and diligently to ensure that the nascent oil and gas industry will contribute meaningfully to our economy. We are promoting policies and regulations that are equitable to both international oil companies and the local economy. In this respect, high on the agenda is to develop an effective local content policy that will ensure that as much value as possible is captured within the local economy. This will entail a robust capacity building program, such as that many Namibians are employed in the sector, and that goods and services are supplied by local Namibian companies. I would also like to use this platform, ladies and gentlemen, to remind ourselves about Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. We have adopted Agenda 2063 as our blueprint and master plan for transforming Africa into a global powerhouse of the future. I have no doubt in my mind that as Africans, we have what it takes to achieve the Africa we want. We have what it takes to make our continent a place of peace and a place of stability, a place of sustainable socio-economic development. However, to position our continent for success, we will need not only more collaboration, but we will also need effective collaboration among African countries, African organizations, and African entrepreneurs. As we ready ourselves for this powerful future, the Africa we want, let us also make sure that we make use of the African talents available to us where meritocracy is embraced. This conference is a great example of the collaboration I am talking about. I will conclude my remarks by calling upon all of us as Africans, political leaders, business leaders, academic leaders, and especially our young enterprising Africans, to work proactively and creatively in search for solutions to our socio-economic challenges. The future is ours as Africans, but only if we believe in our dreams and work diligently and with stubborn determination to realize our dreams. I thank you, and God bless Africa. I thank you.
What can I add to this? I just have to say, Georgiev, and I think I don't need to translate because your Wolof is so good. It's better than my Wolof, and the Wolof of the president, because the president and I, we come from the same city. We are Serer, and our Wolof is very bad. Thank you so much. Last year, we missed so much as a man who will get the floor right now, Dr. Ibrahim. Welcome. And we're so glad you could make it this year. So just let me know, this time, no connection flight issue, no COVID issue. And this is a point where I'm kindly blowing to His Excellency as the President of the African Union. I think we need to hold a conference about how to travel from an African country to another without any trouble. So please welcome Dr. Ibrahim. He's the Secretary General, Apple. The floor is yours.
Mr. Ayuk, you can afford not to do protocol because you come from the private sector. I'm in the government sector, and protocol is part of government. So please allow me to follow protocol. Excellency Macky Sall, President of the Republic of Senegal and Chairman of the African Union, Her Excellency Aïssatou Sophie Galadima, Minister of Petroleum and Energies of the Republic of Senegal, host Minister of MSGBC Conference, and prospective member of the Apple Ministerial Council, Ministers of MSGBC partner states, Mauritania, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Guinea-Conakry, members of the Apple Ministerial Council here present, the President and alternate President of OPEC in the persons of their Excellencies, Messrs. Bruno Jean Richard Itwa, Minister of Hydrocarbons of the Republic of Congo, and Gabriel Mbaga Obiang Lima, Minister of Mines and Hydrocarbons of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, Minister Didier Budumbu Ntubwanga of the DRC, another potential member of the Apple Ministerial Council, Minister of Mines and Energy of the Republic of Namibia, His Excellency Thomas Alwindo. I've just been told that he's no more potential. They are already on board. His Excellency Mohamed Amin Adam, Deputy Minister of Energy of the Republic of Ghana, Excellencies, other ministers here present, members of Diplomatic Corps, senior members of the Senegalese government, captains of the oil and gas industry, my brother Ayuk, the indefatigable champion of the African energy cause, and his team, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. That's the protocol. Once again, I should like to thank Her Excellency Minister Aïssatou Sophie Galadima for the invitation extended to Apple to participate in this year's MSGBC conference. I'm glad that this year, unlike last year, we are here in person, not virtual. Excellencies, in my address to the MSGBC last year, I had identified 3 imminent threats that the global energy transition poses to the oil and gas industry in Africa. I had argued that these threats are unique to Africa, not because we produce the highest volume of oil or gas. Indeed, there are some single countries whose daily production exceeds that of all of Africa put together. Rather, these threats are unique to Africa because governments of oil and gas producing countries in Africa are a lot more dependent on oil and gas revenue than the other countries. The 3 challenges we identified were funding, technology, and markets. I had noted that in response to new policies introduced by their governments and also pressure from the anti-fossil fuel lobby, the Western financial institutions that had for decades financed oil and gas projects in Africa have announced plans to discontinue funding oil and gas industry projects, especially in Africa. The international oil, gas, and service companies, as well as the oil and gas research faculties and institutions, are under tremendous pressure from their governments to quit the industry. A number of their faculties of petroleum engineering have shut down, and more are on the verge of closing down. A lot of financial resources is being channeled into renewable energy research and development. And all these are taking place simultaneously with a massive campaign to demonize fossil fuels and make its users and producers feel guilty. No one is talking about those who use fossil fuels for over 100 years to transform their own economies and the living conditions of their peoples. No one is talking about the role that these societies played in bringing about the current global environmental mess. Instead, we are being told by the global media and other global institutions which they control that the environmental challenge is a universal challenge and all hands must be on deck to reverse the mess that they have created. Your Excellencies, it's all not lamentations. Africa has had enough of lamentations. It's time for action to remedy the ills of the past and to chart the course for a promising future for our continent and its people. And all hands in Africa must be on deck to achieve this mission. Excellencies, on the part of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, I'm pleased to announce, with the permission of members of the Ministerial Council here present, that we have moved from providing theoretical solutions to identify problems to taking practical actions to forestall challenges to our industry. In this respect, I should like to share with this audience some of the actions we are currently taking to address the 3 identified imminent challenges to the oil and gas industry in Africa, with the hope that we shall get your buy-in, as most of the activities we are embarking on have benefit beyond APO member countries. Indeed, what APO is doing today is championing the cause of Africa's energy security. On financing, we have noted that the traditional financiers of oil and gas projects in Africa, namely the Western financial institutions, have signified their commitment to abandon funding fossil fuel projects. We also noted that these same countries have established the Climate Fund, ostensibly to support amelioration and adaptation from fossil to renewable fuels. We had cautioned against African countries falling for the Global Climate Fund, arguing that it could be another debt trap. For what is Africa doing? So what is APO doing to support oil and gas producing countries to get the funds with which to sustain upstream, midstream, and downstream activities in the absence of external funding? Excellencies, I'm pleased to inform this audience that on the 16th of May 2022, APO signed an MOU with the Afri-Exim Bank to establish the Africa Energy Bank. When fully established, the Africa Energy Bank shall fund energy projects in the upstream, downstream, and midstream sectors of the oil and gas industry, in addition to other forms of energy. The Africa Energy Bank shall constitute the pillar of Africa's energy security. It shall be the first major step to ensure continuity in oil and gas projects in Africa in the light of divestment by traditional financiers. Negotiations between Afri-Exim Bank and APO is ongoing, and we hope to be able to get this out of the way before the close of this year. And I'll also use this opportunity to invite all who share our vision for Africa and who also want good returns on their investment to invest in the Africa Energy Bank when we open for business. In addition, the proposed African Energy Bank, the long-term strategy committee of APO is currently looking into other means of raising funds for the industry. That is what we've done, or we are doing on the finance. On technology challenge, namely, we have noted that for the nearly 3/4 of a century that African countries have been producing oil and gas, the technology of the industry has never been domiciled in Africa. We still rely on external technology and to a large extent, external expertise. This is because the IOCs made sure that the main centers of oil and gas research, innovation, and development remained outside the African continent. Now that these institutions are closing down their oil and gas research innovation centers, what is APO going to do which 125 billion barrels in the ground of oil, over 500 trillion cubic feet of gas. If you add what we have in Senegal, we're talking a lot more. What are we going to do in the absence of these countries? And let's not deceive ourselves. External powers will come to work with you for as long as it is in their best interest. The day they determine that it is not in their interest, they will abandon you. And this is a fact I think we have to come to terms with. Now, I'm trying to skip because the time, I don't want to read everything I've written. The Upper Ministerial Council saw the need to have world-class oil and gas research and development centers across Africa. They also recognized that establishing world-class oil and gas research, innovation, and development centers cost a lot of money. And having noted that many Upper member countries have these institutions, have decided that instead of starting afresh, we go around Africa, Upper member countries, see the research, development, and innovation centers they have, and create from amongst them centers of excellence. In other words, the time for countries to say we want to do everything by ourselves has gone. We are looking at regional centers of excellence in the upstream, downstream, and midstream sectors of the oil industry. And when a country's institution is chosen, we shall upgrade it to the highest level, and it will belong not to just that country, but to all the members of the organization. Your Excellency, I'm pleased to say that the Upper Secretariat has completed the first phase of the evaluation visits to the institutions in some of its member countries and is preparing to go for the second phase. When all the shortlisted institutions have been visited and evaluated, a recommendation will go to the governing bodies on the institutions that can more readily be upgraded to Upper centers of excellence. Admissions to the centers for internship and for fellowship shall be open to all members of the APO. And ownership also shall be for all members. Of course, the country hosting it is going to have a lot more advantage in terms of admissions. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, admissions to these centers, as well as internships, like I said, shall be open to all oil and gas operators in member countries. It's important to note that these institutions are not going to be theory-based, but practical. Students, interns, and fellows shall be studying and doing practicals, attachment to oil companies or in particular projects. For example, Nigeria is today constructing the Ajaokuta-Kano Kaduna gas pipeline. This pipeline is the nucleus of the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline that shall traverse Nigeria, Niger, and Algeria, 3 Upper member countries, and eventually to Europe. Our plan is that since Nigeria is already started work on this project, engineers from Niger Republic shall be brought to Nigeria to become part of the project team. That way, when the project reaches Niger section, they would already have had their people on the project. This is how the West made it, coming together, working together. In Africa, we always work in just our nations. We can't move forward. This can be repeated with the planned extension of the West Africa gas pipeline from Ghana all the way to Morocco. In Central Africa, the Central Africa gas pipeline system, CAPS, a brainchild of some Upper ministers, some of whom are here this morning, could also benefit from this approach. The third challenge we identified is marketing, namely the diminishing or imminent absence of traditional markets for our fossil fuels due to the pressure to abandon them. In this respect, I just want to say that for the last few months, we have seen a flurry of people from Europe coming to Africa talking about gas, let's talk gas. Seriously speaking, they are coming because they need it, not because they believe we need it. And the moment they don't need it, they will abandon us. We have to learn. We have to learn to stand on our own feet. We understand there's no finances, but I have always argued, if Africa wants to raise the funds, it can raise it. It's just a matter of prioritizing your expenditure. So we have been conditioned. We are exporting it because we are literally forced to do so. We have been conditioned to believe that our energy is an export commodity. And this is evidenced in the layout of our energy infrastructure, where most of the pipelines run from oil and gas fields to terminals at the ports. In addition to this is our lifestyles and consumption patterns. A major fallacy we have lived with for decades in Africa is that our people do not have the purchasing power to buy energy. We have believed in that fallacy for so long, and that could explain the poor condition of the African continent. It is like a vicious cycle. If we all believe that energy is central to all forms of development, what stops us from empowering the people to buy energy? Once you empower them, you are going to unleash their development potentials. It's true that there is no market for energy in Africa. Is it true that there is no market for energy in Africa? That has a population of 1.4 billion people, 600 million of whom do not have access to electricity, and 900 without access to any form of modern energy for cooking or for domestic use. In APO, we believe that there is a huge potential market for energy in Africa. What is lacking is developing that market by empowering the people to access that energy. Central to creating that market is the provision of energy infrastructure that will readily take energy from the places of abundance to areas of need. Create economy of scale energy projects like refineries and petrochemicals that can serve regions, not single countries. Construct pipelines that traverse many countries within a region. That is what it takes to create a market, to empower the people to buy energy and to use it to change their living conditions. This is what it takes to ensure energy security on the continent, and by implication, national security. It's apt to say here that we cannot delink energy security from national security. So what is APO doing in this respect? APO plans to use its leverage with the Africa Energy Bank to ensure that cross-border energy projects are given priority in the disbursement of project funds. We will also continue to explore ways of supporting member countries, their NOCs, and the private sector to go into joint partnership for cross-border projects. I had earlier made reference to the Trans-Sahara Gas Pipeline and West Africa Gas Pipeline. The next big project in Africa is the Central Africa Gas Pipeline System. This very important project shall be launched next week in Douala, the Republic of Cameroon. This is a laudable and ambitious project, and APO calls on all the countries involved to give it the fullest support. Beyond the 9 countries, it is also economically wise decision for investors to put their money there when the prospectus for the project is released, hopefully early next year. Permit me, Excellency, once again, to recognize the visionaries behind the CAPS, a project that is destined to change the face of Central Africa. Dear Excellencies Gabriel Lima, Bruno Jean-Richard Etua, and Didier Bodimbo Ntubwanga. Thank you, gentlemen, for your foresight. Before ending my remarks, let me make an observation about the theme of this year's edition of MSGBC, the future of natural gas, growth using strategic investment and policy. Recent geopolitical developments outside our continent have made some African countries that are endowed with natural gas resources darlings of some countries that only recently were trying to make us feel guilty for producing fossil fuels. These latter countries are today encouraging us to produce fossil fuels to meet their needs, and they are prepared to provide the funds and create the necessary infrastructure to evacuate the gas when produced. Global environmental concerns or climate change concerns take back burner when the interests of these countries are affected. It is okay for Africa to increase its fossil fuel production so long as the final destination is Europe, not the eradication of energy poverty or the industrialization of Africa. To conclude, I should like to stress that it is important that current and prospective oil and gas producing African countries whose economies are dependent on oil and gas revenue should join us in APO to collectively pursue policies that will guarantee the survival of the industry in the face of imminent existential challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your kind attention.